right now?
Great. Thank you. Mighty, mighty Min. I always love saying that because she is mighty. Well, hi Sarah. It's great to see you. So cool. Um,
Sora,
well,
those videos were great. The robot dress. I
that
think
that
you're
was
muted.
Thanks.
that's really cool. Uh,
Yes.
oh, there's hope. Good. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start. Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody. Well, want to wish everybody a happy new year. I'm hoping that this year will be better. We've had a very challenging year. Lots. Yeah, I don't think I need to go into detail, but I'm hoping for a new, better year this year for all of us and for all our students. I'm hoping that everyone will continue to stay healthy and safe as best as they can. And hopefully, with the prospect of the vaccinations, everybody will be, going through that and, getting protected as soon as we can, which I think is a really great thing. I'm really excited to be here with all of you. We restart our CSTA monthly meetings, and I'm really, really excited to have two really great presenters this evening. And so I'm going to go ahead and start by welcoming Osvaldo Banuelos from East Lake High School, and I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away, Osvaldo.
Thank you very much for having me, everybody. I haven't been here before. I meant to go to one of those Stone Brewery meetings a few years back, and something came up, but I'm glad to be here now. I'm going to share the slide deck with everybody. There's some cool links in there, and I'm going to share my screen now.
Yeah, all presenters should have access.
Right. So the title of the presentation is Perusal Supporting Literacy in Student-Centered Social Learning Spaces. Kind of a mouthful, but hopefully you'll see kind of why I've titled it that. A few months ago now, Beth Simon sent out an email kind of inviting us to take her micro course through UCSD Extension, and I took her up on it, and it's really changed the way I view literacy at my site, which is 54% Latino. And it's really changed the way I think about my pedagogy in terms of facilitation. So in her email, she really asked these three questions. How do you know that your students aren't just skipping the text and jumping to the activities? Do you have concerns about whether they're understanding the material and how they're understanding it? And are you looking for ways to support students asynchronously? Which I thought was a great way to start today's conversation. Now for the emotional piece, why is literacy so important? Don't and the reality is that in fact, nine-year-olds are reading more than our high school students. And it's kind of a troubling trend. Unfortunately, students are reading less and less. And by the time they get to college, in fact, only about 20 to 40% of students do the assigned reading. The article I've linked here is a great resource from the Chronicles of Education. Like to check it out later. Where it talks about
Hey,
Mr.
Osvaldo.
Mazur and Perusal.
Osvaldo,
Yes.
I think you should repeat it again because I don't know if anybody else experienced it, but I think you cut out for a chunk on this slide. I don't think we heard you.
You may want to just turn off your video, Osvaldo, and then that would be lower bandwidth.
Okay. Alrighty, there we go. Yeah, so in high school, students are reading less and less as they get into higher and higher grades. And then by the time they get to college, only about 20 to 40% of students do the required reading. And that's kind of led a lot of teachers to kind of explore, reading quizzes. And in fact, you see that quite a bit in high school as well. And I don't know how successful that's been, but I think that we can circumvent those reading quizzes with something like perusal, which is very low stress. So I'm going to jump over into perusal now. I don't know how much familiarity you all have with perusal, but I'm just going to go ahead and share with you kind of my experience with perusal and kind of the work that students are doing on it. All right, so I started using perusal at the beginning of this school year on August 10th. And I must say that, students just hit the ground running. You'll notice that it gives you some great analytics. I can see that, the average reading time was 1 hour and 38 minutes. I got 194 comments on this short section. I got the most upvoted annotations. And I want to show you kind of just really how it works. All right, so here it is. You'll notice that on the left here, we have the CS Awesome text. And you'll notice that a lot of the text kind of has a highlight to it. At the very top, we have a kind of like a guiding type question that students would respond to, define these key terms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then everything you see here are annotations made by students. Now, I've kind of grouped my students into groups of 8 or 10 so that, everyone gets a chance to annotate the text. And I can color the highlights by student so that I can kind of see who wrote what. All right, so this was the first annotation, right? So, pretty much the second week of school, and I just presented this tool to them, and they really just understood how to use it really quickly. You'll notice that, a student immediately wants to clarify something. You have then other sets of students kind of responding to the student. I jumped in and provided kind of a visual, and you end up with something that's just very rich. Right?
Yes.
So I kind of wanted to share some specific annotations with you, which I thought were of, of specific interest, special interest. Let's see.
So when it's highlighted, does that mean there's an annotation?
That's exactly right. So I assign the reading before class, and so students are to go in there and annotate it before class begins. And so, students are annotating at different times. And so when a student comes in and reads something, they actually see the annotations of their classmates, and they could either add an annotation, respond to an annotation, or simply read the annotation. And if someone responds to an annotation that, you've added, they will then be able to see that in their notifications. In fact, it'll send it to their email, and they'll be able to respond to the annotation inside of their email, right? So it's a lot like social media in that regard, where if you post something, you're gonna get some response. In addition to that, students can kind of upvote a comment if they think that it's particularly valuable. If they have a question that they also want answered, they can click on the question, and then that'll tell me as a teacher, hey, this is a question that many students have. I want to make sure that I address that question in the synchronous time of the class, right, when we actually meet. All right, so here's a pretty good first example. Why doesn't the computer recognize values of variables if the variable is on the left of the equal sign? And I responded, with an answer which may or may not have satisfied the student, and I provided a link to a Replit kind of code which the student can then run. This is really powerful because if a student has the same question, they are now able to kind of see the answer and I don't have to answer the question twice. In addition to that, this is recorded, right? And so students can always go back to this. You'll notice that in addition to being able to add hyperlinks or embed video, students can also anonymize themselves, right? If maybe they don't feel comfortable sharing yet, they want to anonymize themselves, they can. In addition to that, students can use hashtags. So let me see, I'll get out and then go back in. So if you notice, I said hashtag Replit because I wanted students to use this hashtag so that, whenever I wanted to kind of see all of the different instances where students explained themselves or were able to explain a concept using an example of code, well, then it would be easy for me to find it. And so here are a number of different examples where students kind of were able to engage in a conversation with each other and then extend it to proving their point or arguing their point with code itself. And so in that way, it really elevates the conversation. In this case, we're talking about, the largest int value, and then there's a code. If I wanted to see this comment in context, I can press this button and I can see kind of why it came about. All right. So it's kind of like an e-reader, but it's really just a lot more powerful than that. And so these hashtags, I really haven't taken advantage of them enough, I don't think, but you can easily see how, we can have our students use hashtags to magnify or to really elucidate the fact that, hey, maybe we're talking about abstraction, or maybe we're talking about polymorphism, control, modularity, so on and so forth. Okay. Are there any questions at this point? I want to.
Does anybody go ahead?
Are you going to get into how? I guess my immediate question would be how you motivating them to engage with this. What is there an intrinsic motivation? Are you grading based on this, and how much time is that taking?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a very good question, right? What is the carrot? So I would like to say that they're intrinsically motivated because it's social, right? Because when they post something, there's this possibility that someone else is going to read it and that someone's going to engage them in a conversation. They're going to get an email, but in reality, the genius of this app is that all of the annotations are being graded automatically, right? There's an algorithm working in the background, which is essentially grading them. And so, for example, these are all of the different annotations, and I'll show you kind of what the scores look like. So I've changed the scale a little bit, but essentially it scores it on a 3-point scale, 0, 1, or 2. And 3, of course, 2 being the highest, but I've changed it so that you have a 7, 8, or 10. And so, the algorithm is essentially looking for the depth of understanding. Are you alluding to the text? Are you, if you just say something like, this is very interesting, well, of course, that's a 0 or a 7 in my case. If you simply paraphrase briefly, that might be a 1. And then a 2 will be, this is, this is what this says. It reminds me of, and this leads me to make sense of it because, so something to that effect. I have all of those resources and I can provide you kind of how the algorithm works, but it essentially looks at 3 things, right? It's making sure that the student has submitted the annotations on time. It's making sure that the student has done the required number of annotations. And then it's also making sure that the annotations are spread out evenly throughout the reading, okay? And so, because the annotations are being graded automatically, and because the algorithm works really well, I actually make this 10% of their grade, right? And so students are very resourceful and they won't do anything unless it's going to affect their grade. And I think this is the perfect kind of halfway point, right? The teacher is given a tool that is going to auto grade and do it pretty well, and students will get credit for it. So I think that's why students do it, and that's why they're motivated to do it. Apart from the fact, of course, that it's social, and so it's very engaging in that manner.
Osvaldo, if I could ask, your library there with your selected readings, how did you bring those into perusal? Are they HTML documents or are they PDFs, or how did you build it?
That's a great question. Thank you. So there's a number of different ways in which we can add content. The way that I'm doing it right now, I literally go to the CS Awesome page, I get the URL, and I enter it here where it says web page. And essentially it just takes a snapshot of the page. It carries with it all of the links, but not the videos. And that's what you're seeing, in fact. Yeah, so it's you can get the URL web page. You can upload a PDF from your computer, from your Dropbox. You can upload a video that students will annotate, which I'm going to show in a moment, or you can have students annotate a podcast. If you use the iClicker, you can also upload that as well.
Hey, Osvaldo,
Yeah.
I hope it's okay if I ask Tasha Frankie to make her comment. She posted in the chat. But
Oh, yes, of course.
yeah, you know, Tasha, can you speak to that, to what you just wrote? I'm not sure if maybe Tasha heard. Are you there, Tasha?
Tasha could have low.
I'm talking with myself muted. I am muted
Okay.
video instead of my microphone.
How
Sorry
many of
about that,
us?
guys.
How many of us have done that already? Go ahead.
I blame it being happy hour. Anyway, yeah, I've been using Perusal for a few terms, and I think it's great for getting some good conversations going between students. And I really like it in my asynchronous classes where my students are never meeting together at the same time. But every once in a while, students complain, hey, you know, I don't think that I'm getting the score I should be getting. And so I can go in and I can look at their comments. And every once in a while, I'll see a comment that I think is not auto-graded appropriately. Like, it's really insightful, but it's short. And so Perusal says, oh, this is only worth 1 on the 0 to 2 scale. And so I can manually change that to 2. But usually I look at it and I can give students some tips for writing better comments. And that's, I think, a very useful thing for students to learn, even at the college level, is how do I write in a way that is useful for other people to read?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's absolutely true. In addition to that, I hope I don't go off on too much of a tangent, but the scoring kind of rubric can be modified quite a bit. You know, you can give students a larger penalty for being late, but you can also give them more points for responding to their classmates, for example, or things of that nature. And so it really is, you know, something that you can get into, you know, if you upvote, just, you know, if you want to improve engagement, there's different ways of modifying how the algorithm works so that it values certain behaviors. And so I'll leave it at that. But I want to go back to that first assignment for which we saw some annotations, and I want to show you something that Perusal generates automatically, right? So every annotation is tied to a specific line of text, right? There's nothing that students are writing that isn't directly associated to the actual content on the page. And because of that, Perusal is able to generate what's called a confusion report. And this to me is what is really a game changer, and what really leads to me saying that Perusal leads to student-centered social experiences, right? Because it's these questions that are going to be guiding the conversation when I do meet with the students in the classroom, right? It isn't going to be my questions that I think they have, it's going to be their questions. And this is going to lead to a dynamic in which students are going to feel like their voice is leading the classroom conversation, right? And I think that really encourages students to participate and to feel like they're part of kind of the classroom, especially now that, you know, we're distance learning. So again, I always, you know, take these questions and I make sure to answer these. I talked about using video annotation as a tool to kind of get more engagement. And here's kind of the first time I used a video annotation. You'll notice that I got 55 comments in 15 minutes. Let's check it out. So just some quick background. We were about to begin the unit on conditional statements. And I'm a huge fan of three-step math, which kind of has this idea where you present a problem and then you kind of work towards solving it. And so I'll play the video. Okay, so you can see that you can, as you're playing the video, you can pause it and add a comment, right? So when you click on this add a comment button, it immediately creates this field where you can add your comment. And in addition to that, you'll see that all of these different dots along the bottom are different annotations made by students. And the annotations that they're making are based on some guiding questions which I asked them to answer. Namely, you know, what conditionals do you think are being used by this useless machine? And the I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I was laughing. The useless machine.
Yeah, that's what they call it. And so, you know, you can see that the conversation is very rich. Immediately they start, you know, of course, there's different students are at different levels in this classroom. There's students that are very advanced and there's students who are very, you know, they're barely getting started with Java. And so the conversations are very rich. There's a very low barrier to entry, right? Students can say, hey, I wonder if it's using an if conditional. If the switch is on, then, you know, the hand is going to come out and turn it off. Other students, you know, immediately start going into a higher level thinking. And I think it just makes for a great way to start a unit on conditionals. Immediately, of course, students ask, you know, can we build a machine like this? And so I think that it's just a great way to kind of spark interest and to kind of, you know, just bring back what you're doing in class to something that is fun and kind of amusing. All right. So, you know, once I started using Perusal to annotate text, and then I started seeing how powerful it was and how comfortable students felt with it, I immediately started thinking of different ways in which I could use Perusal. And in fact, you know, a week after the first time I used it, I decided to, during my synchronous time now, use Perusal to essentially record every single student's response to something. And you'll notice that for this activity, I have a worksheet that comes from CS Awesome. I got 265 comments and 36 minutes. You'll notice that one student I think was absent, but other than that, I had close to 100% engagement, right? Do remember, right, that students in college are only about 20 or 40% of the students are doing the readings. But in this case, you know, I'm getting 90% plus participation just about every time. All right, so let's take a look at this worksheet. So for this, what I did was essentially give them the answers, and the purpose of the activity was to get them to write a question that would be the complement to this answer, right? So I highlighted each of these texts and I said, all right, so add your question here. And this is something that all of the students were doing on the same perusal, right? So I had 23 odd students on the same one. And I asked them to all write down their question. And in addition to that, I asked them to upvote the question that they thought was best. Okay. And you'll notice that you have a lot of different potential questions that complement this answer. But the one that most students upvoted was this one, right? What are, sorry about that. Right, so what are 3 types of primitive variables and what do they do? Of course, you know, that answer is not exactly correct, but what's great about it is that I was able to find out that there was a misunderstanding there, or that, you know, students didn't perfectly understand the differences between, you know, primitive variables and object reference variables. So this allowed me to, you know, essentially find out that there was a misunderstanding without, you know, any one student feeling like they got, you know, called out in front of class, in front of everybody, right? So you can do interesting things like this.
Hey, Osvaldo, I think you got about two more minutes.
Okay. All right. So another example of, you know, how one can use perusal in a way that isn't necessarily just about reading an annotation is by having these group projects. So I had students program a BuzzFeed quiz, and you'll notice that each one of these boxes represents the question for the BuzzFeed quiz and the description of variables, control, and modularity, which happen to be the 3 competencies for the APCSA course. And so their task was to describe, you know, how these 3 competencies or how they'd mastered these 3 competencies by way of this program, in addition to providing a link. And so here you can see that students were responding to each other saying, hey, I found your BuzzFeed quiz really cool because, so on and so forth. But really the key thing here was, you know, if you're using these variables, can you describe why you use these variables? What control structures, specifically, you know, conditional statements, why were conditional statements so useful? And so in this context where every student can see each other's work, there is no fear of students copying from each other, right? It really does go out the door because everything is transparent. And if the student got the code from the internet, they still have to describe kind of what they did and why they did it. And I think it really leads to a lot of camaraderie in the classroom, and it really leads to confidence, right? Because it's understood that everyone is at a different level, but you know, I can always upvote, you know, responses that I think really exemplify quality work, and students can see that and build off of it. If I can just get one more minute, I wanted to share a one last example of ways to use perusal, which is a little different, and it's called a choice board. And a choice board is essentially this board where students get to kind of demonstrate their multiple intelligences, right? So the whole idea behind Gardner's multiple intelligence is that when one has a thorough understanding of a topic, one can typically think of it in multiple ways. And so this choice board was all about iteration, you know, loops. And so I started it off. I gave them an example and I said, you know what, I really like the music of Philip Glass. I really think that it exemplifies iteration. And students immediately got onto this and started sharing kind of their ideas. In the naturalist intelligence, students started talking about, the photosynthesis and the life cycle. In the interpersonal, people started talking about times where you get worried and you kind of get into this loop. It really opened up my eyes to the fact that when students are given a social learning space where they are at the center of what's being generated, and the questions that are being generated really stem from their ideas and their wonderings, that they really take it up and they really take ownership of their learning, while of course improving their literacy. So I want to thank everybody for your attention.
Well, thank you so much, Osvaldo. I think that just when I saw Osvaldo doing this and doing it with his students, it was, it's very impressive. Obviously, there's high level students in the course. Yeah, we're reading levels and stuff like that, but we're exploring this right now with AP CSP, and we're using it at San Isidro, at Southwest High School, where we have large populations of English language learners, and we're trying to scaffold. And I know we have middle school teachers in here, and if we could provide articles of reading for kids starting at the middle school to start engaging and doing this, I think I'm thinking, we could scale up and really help improve our English language learners to reading on there. I know we got a short limit of time, right, Min?
Yes. So we have about 25 minutes, and then Mark would like to present for the last 5 minutes.
Okay, so I know that I just know the CS for each group needs about 15 minutes, they told me. I just want to just throw it out in the room just for a couple of minutes. Anybody have any comments? Anything they want to share real quick? I just okay. Okay, and thank you for hope everybody got something out of there. Osvaldo, is it cool if people can reach out to you to ask questions on how to use this and implement? Would that be okay?
Absolutely. I'll include my email in the slide deck.
So if you want to try to start this, maybe not this year, but maybe you do, you never know, contact Osvaldo. Tasha has some familiarity with it also. And I think it'd be a great thing to try to incorporate. It doesn't matter what class you're teaching, by the way. Anything that incorporates reading, I think the physics professor was tired of not having kids reading the stuff they're supposed to read before they start class. So, it's going to help,
Art, I had a question real quick.
Sure.
The question I have is about structuring the assignment. So if you're taking in material from an online source, let's say that you want to chunk that up over 3 separate assignments, how difficult is that?
So if it's a PDF, you upload the document once, and then it has a feature where you can select which pages you want to assign. So if you only want to assign one page at a time, you can assign one page, and then it'll do all the grading in that way.
Thank you.
I think a key point for using Perusal is asking the right question. As always. Okay. Well, thank you, Osvaldo. Yay. I thought that was really cool. Thank you so much. So we're really excited, to have our next group present, and we're going to have CS for each. So Kyle, David, and Yada, you can, and Min, can you just help me out here? You gave them sharing privileges?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you guys can go ahead and start, and everybody they'll introduce themselves, and here we go. We're very excited to have them here with us.
Let's see. David, are you able to show the slides on your end?
I think he came in later. Let me.
Sorry, just one sec. I just got a call from someone else. But Kyle, you can get the slides up if that's okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Actually, wait, the call just ended, so I can pull those up. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
No worries, guys. We're very informal. People are having drinks.
All right. Got everything up right now, so I think we're good to go.
Awesome. So, hi everyone. My name is Kyle. I am a fourth-year computer science major at UC San Diego, and I am joined with a few of the officers here representing our student org on campus called CS for Each. And we're here to talk about opportunities we would like to provide to computer science teachers in the San Diego area to assist them in promoting CS education in their schools. Yep, so again, I'm joined with a few members of the CS Reach Officer Board, and I'll just give a moment for them to introduce them to yourselves.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So hey everyone, my name is David. I'm a third year computer science student at UCSD, and I'm serving as the VP External for CS Reach. And then Yada, you can go. Oh, Yada, you're muted right now. Can't hear you still.
Hello, can you hear
Hi.
me now?
Yep.
I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Hi, my name is Yara. I'm a third year math and computer science major, and I'm also the director of Triton Hacks.
Awesome. And then we're also joined by Jose, which is not in the meeting. I don't know if he'll be able to make it, but he wishes you all a warm welcome. Okay, so just a short background about what CS4Each is. So back in the fall of 2017, Sarah Guthels taught a class at UCSD called CST 190, teaching computer science in informal spaces. And this inspired some of the students taking the class to essentially put their lessons into practice. So some of you may be familiar with Nada, Jose, Pirag, who are the OGs, and they helped found the org CS4Each, which we all know, which you know today. And 4 years later, we're still going strong. And throughout the years, we have visited countless schools, hosted countless workshops, and have been able to interact with many of your students to help make computer science more engaging and more fun. And as you can see, we've been doing workshops from a variety of schools. I believe the top left is from Crawford, where we help prepare students for robotics competition. There are other images from Sweetwater, Montgomery, and so on. So just a lot of schools that me, myself, it's getting pretty hard for me to keep track of. And there are a few more pictures here. The one in the middle actually is from my first volunteer session at Knox Middle School with Mr. Morris. And we helped him with preparing students for the robotics competition. And I believe they got into like the quarterfinals for their first year. So hopefully the robotics competition did their school proud, and that they have a you know, a lasting memory that I hope can motivate them to pursue a tech career in the future. So it just goes to show about the different varieties of ways we are able to help students in the CS curriculum. We have a diverse set of lesson plans from teaching students App Inventor, JavaScript, Python. We've also done talks with students talking about what it's like to study CS in college. We've also done some APCS reviews, helping out in after-school CS clubs, any way possible to enrich the students' experience in computer science. And for now, we would like to continue on with that work. So our goal as an organization is to help empower students by providing computer science education and mentorship, especially to under-resourced schools and marginalized communities. And to help in our efforts, I'd like to introduce you all to some of the upcoming programs we have planned for this year that we believe will greatly benefit your students. So I will pass it on to the other officers to talk about our program, starting with David.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. So this year, we really want to focus on getting students engaged with computer science. And one thing that we're planning on doing this year, or something that we'd really like to do, is some after-school programs. So we have a bunch of students at UCSC that really want to come and teach students. And we thought a great way to do this is to have after-school programs. This would be especially easy with everything online, just because students can hop into a Zoom call, and then us students at UCSD can easily just like share our screen and present workshops just through that. So we have a bunch of ideas planned. One thing that we have planned is doing Python workshops. So this is specifically for students that maybe have had a tech background or are taking APCSA or APCS principles and want to learn more about using a language like Python. Python's pretty easy to learn for a beginner, and I think it's a really powerful language. I use it every day in school, so I think it'd be great to pass it on to high school students. We'd also like to teach students how to use HTML and CSS. So HTML and CSS are both really powerful tools for building websites. Basically, every website you view today uses HTML on the basically to write out all the content on the website and CSS to style everything. So we think it'd be great to be able to teach students how to build their own website and also deploy that as well. For students that don't really have much of a technical background, we think it'd be great to teach workshops on Scratch, for example, or other block building code resources. So we really want to get students engaged with these computer science concepts and start thinking about code. And I think Scratch is a really good resource for students to learn from. But there's also other resources that we're planning on using as well. And then lastly, for the more advanced students, we'd also like to touch on JavaScript. So JavaScript, it's not exactly the same as Java, but it is pretty similar in the sense that it's an object-oriented language. It's also used a lot with web development. So I personally use JavaScript all the time. I like to build web apps in my free time. And I think it'd be great to be able to teach students the basics of JavaScript because it's a really powerful tool that's used in the industry basically all the time. Some other stuff we'd like to do is more hands-on activities. So this would not only be after school, but also in the classroom. We'd like to teach students labs. So these can be like 1, 2, 3-day labs where we can just introduce a cool project and have students work through it. So we'd really like to work with your classrooms to help teach some labs and projects. Some ideas we have is we'd really like to teach students how to build their own first website, for example. So this could be done very simply with like HTML and CSS. And this wouldn't be too hard to do. These workshops can be done in like a day or two. And just showing students how to build their own website, it's a great way to get them engaged with, learning how to develop their own web apps or just web development in general. Another project that me and Yada actually worked on last year was creating a kit to help students get interested in game development. So I'm not sure if any of you have, opened a new tab on Chrome and saw that your internet was down. If you press any of the arrows in your keyboard, you can actually play this little dinosaur mini game. So me and Yada thought it'd be a great idea if we can actually have students make this game themselves. It's pretty simple. It's basically just a side-scrolling game where you can jump up and down, you get points. But we thought it'd be a really great way to get students engaged with, game development. It's a bit more advanced with Python, but it's still a really cool project we worked on, and we'd love to be able to teach students how to do it themselves. Another project we've done before is a little fun quiz. So this is another HTML app where students can answer questions and basically, find out like what blank are you. So this is a quiz that students can make themselves based off of choices they give the user. And it's a fun little way to get students engaged with some introductory web applications. Another thing we've done is Android Studio apps. So if any of your students are interested in doing mobile applications, we have some really introductory Android Studio lessons planned. This is a meme generator actually, so I'm sure a lot of your students are really interested in memes. So this is a fun project we worked on where students can basically write out their own memes and code this all up themselves with Android Studio. So yeah, that covers all the labs and projects we have planned. We'd also really like to help students prepare for the AP exams. So given that everything's online this year, I'm sure it's very hard for students to stay engaged and stay on top of things, especially when it comes to exam preparation, because they're basically all on their own with this, unless they have like tutors and stuff. So we'd really like to help students, especially since many of us in CS for Each are CS students ourselves and have taken the AP CS exam, to help these students prepare and do their best on their exams. So with that being said, I'm going to transition over to Yada, who's going to talk about Triton hacks for us.
Hi. So Triton Hacks is back this year, and Triton Hacks is basically a hackathon that we've organized specifically for high school students. And you might have heard of it already last year, but unfortunately we weren't able to hold it last year due to the pandemic. However, this year we're fully prepared and it will be online. The hackathon will be on the weekend on the 15th and 16th of May 2021. And I'm really excited to tell you guys about what we've done to prepare for this hackathon. So for this hackathon, we'll be holding workshops leading up to the hackathon. And these workshops are designed to help students prepare for the hackathon. They'll be focused on different topics, such as the basics of Python, HTML, and setting up Android Studio, etc. And the second are the starter kits. So these are guides for different projects, such as building their own web portfolio, making a T-Rex game using Python. David's briefly talked about this. So basically, after the hackathon, these these project guides will be used for the labs. And we have 9 different starter kits. So basically 9 different projects that students can choose from. And they're centered around different topics such as data science, web development, app development, etc. And during the hackathon, students will have the option to choose from our available 9 different project kits or make their own from scratch. And our project kits were developed just for this hackathon and they're designed to be extensible. So these guides will help students with getting started, setting up, going through the minimum requirements, and then students will have the flexibility and creative freedom to personalize and make the projects their own. Um, the applications are open and we're accepting all students attending high school in San Diego, and the deadline is April 10th. However, the application will be closed once all the spots are filled, and we do have limited spots, and the acceptance will be on a rolling application, and we encourage all students to apply as soon as possible. I will send out a link to the flyer in the chat. Um, but if if you could please like pass all this information out to your students, I'll be really grateful. Thank you.
Oh, one quick question, Yara.
Yeah.
Is what's the number of students you're looking at? You're targeting for the hackathon?
We're targeting around 150 students, but since we've like really broadened, we're basically, since it's online, we're basically accepting anyone in any high school student in San Diego. We assume that this would lead to there will be limited spots.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So I think Jose is back actually. So Jose, I'm not sure if you want to talk about early start and maybe
Yeah,
also introduce yourself as well.
yeah, for sure. Hi everyone. So I'm Jose, as some of you may be familiar with. So for this year, we're introducing a new program called Early Start, which aims to introduce high school students into the job application process, but also introduce them to internship opportunities that are specifically targeted for their peers. So with Early Start, students get to work directly with collegiate project teams. Specifically for this year, we're working with another organization on campus called Triton Software Engineering. And for Triton Software Engineering, they're an organization that works with nonprofits, not only in San Diego, but throughout the nation, in helping them develop their websites as well as any other software needs. And the nice thing about Early Start is that students who apply to positions with our program get to work with project teams that Triton Software Engineering is hosting. So it's a nice way for students to be exposed to to be exposed to the job application process that they'll be interacting with later down the line, as well as applying their skills they've learned in your computer science classes in an applicable manner.
Wow.
Ooh, skipped a slide. Let's go back. Yeah, so we'd really like to come to your school and help teach these workshops and also just talk about like Triton Hacks and Early Start. So if you would like to get in touch with us, one of us can drop the link in the chat. I think I could just copy and paste it actually. But we have a little form you could fill out. And once you fill that out, we'll get back to you probably in the next week to see if we can come teach at your school. So yeah, we'd really like to come help you guys out in any way we can, even if it's not with like after school programs or labs. We'd really appreciate if you could just let us know how we can help you. And yeah, we'd love to come. And we also have a little Jamboard. So Art actually introduced me to this last week, but Jamboard is this collaborative software where you can leave little sticky notes. And yeah, so we really like to get suggestions from teachers to see what you think we should teach at your schools, because we have our own ideas as students, but you all are teachers, so you know your students best, and we'd really like to hear from you what you think students would like to see. So I'll link that in the chat, and I can also pull that up on my screen. And we also have a few other questions on here as well. So the first one is, what would you like to see from us? The second is, what impact would you like these programs to have on your students? And the third is, what adaptations have you made or and what issues have you run into since transitioning to an online teaching environment? Also, while we're doing this, we'd be happy to do a little Q&A. So if you have any questions for us, feel free to leave anything in the chat, or you can say it out loud as well.
Hey, Art.
Yes.
I once got an award for asking questions in the last minute of PD, so feel free to cut me off at any point. But I got a question.
No, go ahead.
So the first one is just more of a comment out for Yada is, hey, our students have managed computers. So our IT department controls what software they can install. So we'll need a heads up before workshops about what software has to be installed. This may be something that Art can distribute out if you guys want to put together a list several weeks ahead of time so we can get that into their authorized software list. I don't know if anybody else is in that boat, but just be aware of that.
Oh, do you know what schools are
I
would
think
have
I
this?
think it would run. I think Stefan is making a really great point for you guys, Yada. I think
Yeah.
it runs across all school districts.
Okay.
And I think maybe Mark Landsberger. Are you still here, Mark?
Yes, I am.
So what would be your response to that question? I mean, yeah,
I would say 99.8% of districts in this county have some kind of restrictions for student accounts. And so, and everybody's running from different rules. So it really is incumbent on students who are with a teacher for them to be informed so that they can let their IT departments know what necessary steps need to be taken.
Oh, okay. And my second question is, do you know what kind of devices have been distributed? Is it a Chromebook or an iPad or?
Again, that really depends on the district. Lots of districts have used Chromebooks, but you also have students who are working off of laptops that they own. They're working on their own personal devices. So it's think of every combination that is possible, and we've got it somewhere here in the county.
Of course. Okay. We'll make sure to compile a list. Thank you.
You know what would be really helpful, Stefan and Mark and anybody else in here, and everybody's posting stuff on the chat. If you could help the CS for each organization, it'd be great if you can join that Jamboard and post those notes for them so they can keep track of that. So that's something important, like for them to think about in terms of consideration when they're going to be trying to do this in the future.
Okay,
sorry, go on.
I was going to say if we're ready, I'm ready to move on to my next question.
Sure.
Can I add one thing on really quick?
Sure.
So this is unrelated to Triton Hacks, but one thing that we really wanted to focus on is like individualizing a curriculum for each school. So we talked with Art about this last week, but we know some schools have like Dell Lenovo notebooks, some schools only have Chromebooks. So I wanted to like emphasize that we're not going to have students need to install software if they don't have the software like available to them. So for example, if we teach like Python workshops, there's plenty of like online editors we can use. When it comes to like Android, I think most of that has to be done in apps. So probably couldn't teach that on a Chromebook, but we really want to focus on being able to, teach students with what they have rather than like what they would need.
I would just throw out one suggestion that's a possibility that covers a lot of those spaces is working with Replit. Replit's very, very powerful, and it's really just a matter of opening permissions for that particular website, and that seems to solve a lot of problems for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I've used Replit myself. It's a really powerful tool, and it's great.
I think, and I would also ask you, you're also interested in working with middle schools, correct?
Yes, we'd love to work with middle schools as well. So that would mainly be like Scratch or like introductory to CS concepts. But we'd like to keep it very simple for middle schools. But yeah, we definitely like to get students engaged in CS, no matter like whether they're in high school or middle school.
And if I recall, does anybody else have a question? I don't want to keep talking. If anybody else has a question, please feel free.
I have two more.
Go ahead.
So the next one is about the internships. And we have an internship program at our school, and I'm sure a lot of schools have an internship program. And we're going to have a minimum number of hours they have to meet to do that internship. So they have to go to their internship a certain number of hours each week. So I don't know that information. That's in our workforce development person, but that's something to consider if you're going to do internships. Is will they meet the needs of the school's internship programs?
I can answer that. In that this internship program particularly is not meant to be recognized right now as like any sort of official internship as of the moment. It's more like a extracurricular activity that students can take part of. I'm not sure if there's a strict definition of what counts as internship for various districts, but at the moment, it's I don't think we meet that for now.
Okay, just to fill in there, we wouldn't have a strict definition. I mean, we have people working in our helping our office staff in an internship position. It's just a minimum number of hours per week. So that would be the question: is could you meet that? So long term, that's something to think about.
Sure.
I want to go to my last question, and this is just for those of you who have more experience than me. Kyle and I've been trading a lot of emails. Kyle hooked me up with a tutor for one of my scholars, but that scholar was an exception because he was 18, and I didn't have any concern setting him up with a tutor outside. And so this is one of the things about these programs is, do you have any concerns about how to set these up in a virtual environment? Are you having to put a staff member in there with them? What's going on there?
I can help answer that with you guys if you want me to.
I would appreciate that, Art.
We talked about this, Stefan. So I told him about the challenges in being in a Zoom room, and we're gonna have to talk to each teacher if they can go into classrooms. If you're teaching your class, you want them to come in, they can come in as guest presenters. It's I think fairly easy to do depending on the bandwidth that CS for each has and where they're at with their studies. But you can invite them as guest presenters. If you're doing the after school programs, then we have to consider the fact that there probably has to be a certificated teacher in the same room if they're going to be doing that. But it could be a workshop of maybe 1 day a week for 2 weeks, maybe 2 hours. That will work. I think anything that they would do would be helpful to everybody here and their students.
Now, Art, do you know if there's any possibility that we could combine multiple districts together and have one certificated employee covering that?
We can look into it. I really would appreciate it if you send me an email to remind me. That's a great, yes. I think let's work on that. We got Mark in here, so maybe Mark and I can try, and everybody else, everybody else, just anybody. Just let's see if we can figure that out.
I think that would cover the legal wickets, but I'm not a lawyer, so I can't double check.
Yeah, we have to check, but I think we could do it.
That's me, Art. Good.
Yeah. Anybody else? Because it's the I'm not gonna say nothing. It's time. We got to 6 p.m. So
I actually did have one last announcement, Art, if I could.
Oh yeah, please go ahead, Mark. Please.
No problem at all. So one of the things that we often talk about in the CS community statewide is the idea of making sure that CS offerings are done in an equitable fashion. And so one of the ways that we can do that is we can get current computer science teachers to think a little bit more about their practice and also their how their system operates. So I'm actually offering a course, and I'm going to try to pull it up on my screen here really quick. I have a course offering called Strategies for Effective and Inclusive Computer Science Teaching. And what it is it's an opportunity. It's a 7-week course through Canvas, and the course is actually developed by the University of Texas. However, I will be leading the course, and it's the commitment is 7 weeks, about 4 hours per week. It gives teachers a lot of time to look at culturally responsive pedagogy, intersectionality, teaching neurodiverse learners. There's a lot of different offerings here for teachers to kind of take a pause and think about how, not how as much as which kids are we reaching? Are we making CS accessible for all students on our campuses? And how do we go about being an advocate for that and furthering that practice? So this offering is happening March 1st. It's going to run March 1st through April 16th. So it's this spring. And if you're interested, like I said, it's 7 weeks. It's about 4 hours of work per week. But there is, through the University of Texas at Austin, there's the opportunity for 24 continuing professional education units are available through this course. So if you're interested, I can take up to, I can have a cohort of 35 is what they capped me out at. You can email me. I'm going to drop my email into the chat as well so that you can do that. And if you want to pass that along, I think I've gotten a copy of that flyer to Min, and so that might be on the next mail out to the group. But let me go ahead and put my email into the chat for you, and feel free to reach out to me. And like I said, that course is starting on March 1st.
Awesome. Wow, that sounds really super cool.
Oh, and did I mention it was free? I'm sorry. It is no cost, including for the units.
Oh, and so you can get hurdle credit for teachers to advance. Wow. Okay, that's really sounds great. And you know what? I wonder if that would qualify for anybody that might need to go into getting their CS supplementary credential to teach CS. So
I've been trying to get an answer for that, and it has not come down the wire yet.
okay.
So I will continue shaking that tree as best I can.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mark. That was awesome. Hey, CS for Each, you guys rock. You're awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think the whole community is just so deeply appreciative of you wanting to help with the community. Jose, I'm glad you were able to make it, come in. Everybody, I think you all know Jose Guaros went to my high school, so I'm really just happy. You know, he's amazing. But the whole crew at CS for Eats, you guys are awesome, and I really want to work with them. So, you know, just if we could help help them, you know, connect with your kids, that would be super cool. They really do want to reach out and make the world a better place and serve our community. So I say, you know what, let's help them as much as we can. Okay. Any other announcements? Anybody else got anything they want to say?
I know I said in the MailChimp that we'll announce the video contest winners today, but we still need to sort it out as a board.
Okay.
February meeting, so it will be announced in February meeting along with the prize money and all that stuff. So thank you for those of you whose students submitted. We had a really great time looking at all the videos. It's very creative, equitable, and really awesome. Yeah.
Well, man, thank you. And I think Laura was involved, right? I thank you and everyone, Laura and everyone involved with the video contest. That was super cool that you guys gave the opportunity to kids to do that. Okay. Well, that's it. That's all we got for tonight. Osvaldo Manuelos, thank you so much. Everybody reach out to Osvaldo for perusal. Everybody reach out to CS for Each if you want to contact them about helping up your students. Sign up for Mark's class. You need hurdle credit, and I think his class is amazing to include that kind of inclusive pedagogy for teaching computer science. Mark, I want to talk to you later about that. That would be really cool. Okay. Everybody, I'm from the bottom of my heart. I'm wishing everyone to have. I'm really looking forward to a much better new year. All the events that have occurred, you know what I'm talking about, over the last several weeks. I just hope everything is just calmed down and we're going in a great direction, and that just, you know, be healthy and safe. And I hope everybody gets vaccinated really soon. Okay. All right. Well, it's great to see anybody. If you guys have anything to contribute, want to reach out to us, please contact us and let us know, and email us. Oh, one last thing. Zara from the Data Institute for the San Diego
Data Science Institute.
Yes, is doing sent out a message about an event tomorrow. Correct?
They're doing a panel talk about using data science with COVID. So if you're interested, it's a panel talk. There's actually going to be an exchange back and forth.
Okay. And I will send that out. I got reaching out to a bunch of people, but Min, let's see if we can maybe blast it out in the morning. Would that be okay? I hope
Oh,
that
that'd
be
be
okay.
great. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Min, I hope that's okay.
What? Send me an email. I'll blast it.
Okay. Okay. All right. If you want me to do it, I can do it. It's okay. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Stay healthy and safe. Bye bye.
Hi, everyone.